I really, really, really like Utho Riley. Welcome. Yeah, this is exclamation point Utho. For those of you guys who don't know, that's Utho Riley. That is, all those songs are free, by the way. You can use them in any content you want. Utho is very good about that. That man is way too talented. You're going to hear him up there with, all of the greats here eventually. I know that if I ever do something on a professional level of media, I'm 100% hiring Utho for that. Oh, we're still here. I just haven't opened up the doors quite yet. Give me 2 seconds to ensure that everything is functioning. There we go. That works. Awesome. So let us go. We actually turn on the... Turn on the music. You know what? I'm going to do something different. We'll do something different this time because I've got pretzel. Find if we can get a chill station. All right, there we go. Let's get chill station. Let's get to the office, shall we? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the office hours. My name is Paul, Berserker 01 Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender at the Astropub, as well as your professor at Galactic Historian and the host of Captain's Table. Welcome, everybody. Drinking some food as well. Welcome for the chill. All right. The last thing I need to do before we're going fully live is going to desktop. Oop, wrong one. There it is, Restream chat. All right, there we go. No, I'm not having a beer. Though I should start doing that at some point. Because my fasting doesn't start till 8 my time, and it's only 7 my time. Welcome, everybody. Sorry, we're about an hour late than we normally would be. That's just because food came in late. I got started cooking food late, and I was just like, we'll order. My bad. If we're going to bed, that's a good idea. Kill that real quick. Hearing cats, I don't know why. Enjoy that, Target Drone. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. David Deuce, Beethoven Pet, Evolve Harder. Let's see what ones we got here. Cone Kalop, Target Drones, Scott Odom, Regatta, Manga Aniac, Mr. Squarepad, Fleasure, Sandgroper, Andre, how you guys doing? It starts season RP here. Not quite yet. We'll be doing role play on Fridays is what we do. But we definitely do role plays. JS, thank you so much for subscribing for 2 months, my man. Let me make sure that the macros are on and everything. Let me test something real quick. Okay, that works like that. Looks like that. That works like that. Let's see if it works the other way. Didn't work earlier. Anyways, welcome again. JP, thank you so much for that subscription. Let's get some shots and cheers in chat. I'm going to add some more beers to people. Nope, close. Loyalty. Any news on some Tavarin Talon lore that is confirmed? Or some liquor lore? No liquor lore. Not yet. I've been looking through some of the old jump points because there's lots of lore in the old jump points. And we're going to talk a little bit about the ships. We'll talk a little bit about the Talon. Shave it, you want to. I'm not going to shave this, guys. My wife wants it longer than this. I'm gonna have to trim down the sides a little bit here in a little while, but yeah. Weird. It's not showing my other stuff. It's weird. Hey, happy Flinchers. How you doing, buddy? From freezing South Africa, yeah. So not history. What are your thoughts on the flight model? We'll start with that, and then I'll kind of move on to some of the stories, some of the stuff we'll talk about here. I like the flight model. I like the fact that things have weight, and the things that have weight and pull. I would like for the smaller ships, the lighter ships, to have more maneuverability than they currently do. There seems to be too much. There's not enough agility to make the light fighters deserve of the title of light fighter. They need to be more agile. Whereas the heavy and medium fighters need to be less. It basically needs, as you go up the line, it needs to get less and less. The agility needs to go less and less. That way, that light fighters have maneuverability, so they can maneuver on their targets and fire at them, which will force more interesting dynamic dogfights. And it'll also start focusing for larger ships have to start planning their movements ahead of time rather than doing snap decisions. So a Connie has to orbit an area properly. I still think that there's, according to some of the PvPers I've seen, like they've just basically said it's not been solved. The whole slowing down combat has just made combat more of a chase rather than a dogpile. Hey, Montana. In atmosphere, but not in space. The space is the biggest problem. I mean, I don't think you're going to see a ton of dogfighting in atmosphere. The wind in the hangars is a bug. It's something that they didn't intend to. No problem there, man. Yeah, so you asked about a good place in game right now for something like underground vaults would be Levski. Levski has a bunch of off the beaten path areas which are underground in bare rock, which are pretty cool. Yeah, and for Uriel, you definitely have something like Microtech could work for that. It makes man turrets more important against light fighters if they buff the agility of lights. Yes. Because turrets can track those targets better than ships are, because they don't have to move their entire body. They can hit on that. They can swivel around and track them a lot faster. Regarding traders loops or with regarding pirate loops? Thank you there, QPen, for that retweet, by the way. Because I feel like a lot of trading stuff is it's not hard to get the opinion on traders. The question I always have with traders is, and we've had them in the past. I've had them. I mean, the Astropub, the captain's table has been around for 4 years. I think we've been doing this. So, 3 or 4 years. So we have hundreds of episodes that I've done. Some of them were with haulers and talking about haulers. And there's one episode that I had specifically, I'm not going to name who we talked to, but we talked to somebody and they basically said that they felt that they deserved the right to have access to all of the gameplay loops because they bought the game. And that if they didn't have access to it, then then it wasn't good enough. Basically, they wanted to play everything solo without interactions, without any conflicts with other players, period. Which stuck out to me because it's no, you don't. That's not how games like this are built. You have to make decisions. But But yeah, be a little bit more trigger loops in their pirate troubles. Okay, we won't be able to talk about that. I think we'll probably talk more about that, Malibu, when we start getting to towards 311 when we get the trade deck, because the trade deck's coming before the everything else. So yeah. Much time flying in some ways, I like it, but I think tweak some other things. I think that this is fine. I think what the flight model is right now is fine. It not for a complete, but I don't want them to change it anymore. This is it. I want them to say, this is it. We're going to tweak this to make it work right, and then we're done. Partially because I like it, but partially also because I'm tired of them changing the flight model every year since 2012. Like, and I know it's not actually changing the flight model, it's changing flight characteristics, but that's what people think of as when they think of the flight model. You can't fundamentally change the flight characteristics of how ships fly every year when you've got to release a single player game which is based around flight in a couple of years. You need to pick something and stick with it. Yeah. Hey Fox, how you doing, buddy? Like that rumor about the whale talking about the wipe the other. The other? I don't know what you're talking about. They gotta pick a decision. Just go. You know? You can mess around with it after launch. Just this is the flight model to deal with it. Which is one of the reasons why people like the 263 model. Not because it was good, but because it was around for a year. Without any changes, any modifications. People got used to it. They figured out all the ins and outs of it, and then they were done. Like, when they changed it so dramatically with 3.0, that pissed off a lot of people. Not because it necessarily was a bad change, but because they broke a lot of stuff that was working in 2.6. I'm not going to watch a Chris Roberts Taylor Swift video. Maybe on Thursday or Friday. All right, so let me pull up a couple of these things. So what you guys don't know, one of the things that we're going to be talking about for lore, we'll talk about the Talon, and then we're going to talk about if you read Jump Point magazine, every episode or every edition of Jump Point magazine comes with some sort of lore piece into it. And each lore piece has a different, either has like a ship or weapons manufacturer or something like that. So let's see if they have. No, really. And most of these ships have discussions about the history of the ship, as well as like notable like ships in those lines. So I added that information with like. Let's do this.
Are you ready?
All right. Well, we'll have to do the Idris and the Carrick because they're the only ones who would have the stories. So this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler for the two stuff we're going to be doing here in the next episodes of Galactic Historian. Yeah, hopefully hospitals will help. All right, so let me go back to here. Close that down. Close that down. Close that down. All right, let's talk about the Carrick. Well, before that, let's talk about the Talon, then we'll get to this stuff. We'll talk about some specific ships which are pretty cool that you guys need to learn about. So the first thing is the Talon. So the Talon Light Fighter, based off of my knowledge of the Tavaran, what the Talon Light Fighter is likely an old Tavaran, first and second Tavaran war craft. It's probably something to the equivalent of the Stiletto Light Fighter. It's in a time when light fighters were not valued by most of the combatants. So a Tavaran light fighter is likely less like a Gladius and more like a Saber or like a Delta. Think the Prowler, but stealthier, smaller signatures. I'd also venture to guess, this is just a complete guess. If it ends up having this, I will do a victory lap.
Are you ready?
2 size 3 cannons on it. Gimbaled size 3 cannons. So, fixed size 4s. The reason why I would say it has that is because it would be almost identical then to the Cartual. But the Cartual is not a stealth ship. It is a maneuverability ship. It's a ship that's all about speed and maneuverability. This ship is likely going to be more shield heavy and more stealthy, and probably is going to be maneuverable because it's a light fighter, but its defenses are its stealth rather than its speed. So you're likely going to see something like a Delta, or a light Saber would be my guess. Maybe size 2 gimbals, like 3 size 2 gimbals, which are fixed size 3, something like that. Maybe something along the lines, more like along the lines of the Gladius, possibly. But these were meant for ambush ships. The tactics that the Tavaran had was their large military vessels were frontline phalanx ships. Get together, fight as a unit. Their smaller craft were meant to skirmish, not to fight. So I'm expecting something that has short range, that is designed to be used in groups, that has a lot of stealth capabilities, but is mostly focused on ambushing a target rather than slugging it out with a target. So something that has incredibly weak hull, but sturdy shields. So it's entirely, think the Buccaneer, but stealthy. That's probably what you're looking at. Shuriken, the Sui, whatever the Tavaran shields. Yes. Talking about the Talon, yeah. I am theory crafting the Talon. Because one of the things that Asperia did is Asperia got access to a large cache of Tavaran weapons and ships on Cabal when they discovered it, like recently. So they probably have been reverse engineering a lot of Tavaran tech recently, and thus have more of a ability to recreate some of these. And they're ship nerds. They love to recreate alien vessels. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a light ship. It's not going to be a heavy ship, and it's definitely going to be a stealth ship. But I don't know if it's going to be used with a Prowler. I think it's meant to be used with other Talons, and that its job is to ambush targets. Yeah, it's a Tavaran Buccaneer. I don't expect it to be 2-seaters. I expect it to be 1-seater, and I expect the weapons to be mostly focused on lighter but gimbaled weapons. Raven without the MP, something like that, yeah. But we'll see. It could be because there is a lot of emphasis on community with the Tavaran. The Tavaran don't fight alone. They're not solo warriors. They're group warriors. The difference between, say, the Tavaran and the Vanduul, because everyone's like they both sound like the Klingons. It's like the Klingons are solo warriors. They fight alone. The Tavaran fight in groups. It's the difference between the Japanese and the Chinese, the medieval Japanese and medieval Chinese. Medieval Japanese are solo warriors. You have individual samurai fighting, in the battlefield. Whereas the Chinese work in groups, in units that function as a coherent group. That is the Talon. That is the Tavaran. That's how they function. So it wouldn't be surprising if the Talon had 2 seats. If it was a light hurricane. That would be kind of baller, but I'm not thinking they're going to do that because CIG tends to steer away from those sorts of things. But we'll see. It'll probably be some sort of wing motif, would be likely, rather than a Talon. It'd probably be something like the wings of the Prowler. Where did you hear that, Odinson? I have no idea if the Talon's going to be revealed in a Squadron 42 trailer. Unless they're doing a Squadron 42 trailer instead of that update video. Nothing else. Yeah. I think that was the point at CitizenCon, was it was a single seat, not a double seater. But things do change. Something like a Romulan, yeah. Like a Romulan warbird, but like smaller. So, let's talk about ships, about other ships' lore. Now, this is one of my favorite stories. So, the Carrick is broken down into the military Carricks did not get names. All the Carricks that were built for the military are probably bigger than the civilian Carricks, and they have different designations. So unlike other capital ships, because it's considered a corvette, which means that the Hammerhead is a corvette, which means the Polaris is a corvette. These are all corvette class. This corvette has no names, but they have designations. There are 2 designations for a Carrick that we know of that have been declassified. The R designation and the S designation. So R stands for research. So it's a Carrick that's designed for research, either experimental technology or experimental research for certain things. And then there's the S, which is survey. So the S ships are ones that patrol long distances and survey areas to update maps for the military and civilian markets over long periods of time. The ship that we're going to be talking about is called the S1132. All of the Carricks have a 1. So if it's an R1, it'll have an S1. All of the Carricks are a 1. So the 1 is the first 1 that leads after the letter is a size designation. So anything that is 65 meters or greater is a 1. So in this case, the survey vessel Carrick 132 or S-1132. All of the ship's crews had nicknames for their ships, though. So the S-1132 was called the Good Queen 12, or the GQ-12. Thank you for those follows, guys. I mean, maybe. We'll see, Odin. Oh, we talk about lore. But if you're tipsy, you can, you can chill out for a bit. Hey, Ragnoff, how you doing, buddy? Hey, Sharp End. How you doing, buddy? Guys, make sure you guys are subscribed to Sharp End Galactic Odin Aero Squadron there. It's a full long name. Odin. He's a up-and-coming YouTuber, does a lot of cool stuff, Star Citizen. We've hung out and talked a little bit. You should be subscribing to him. Hey, Dan. So, the GQ-12, this survey ship, UEE survey ship. This is really weird. I'm going to change the music. It's a little bit better. So, the GQ-12 was surveying in the, what was it called? The Osiris system. It was designed to survey along the old Perry line to update maps for the UEE. On its mission in the Odin system, it checked in sometime in 2836. It checked in for its routine mission through the Odin system. Then it didn't check in for 2 more stops. So it made its last transmission 2936 in the Odin system. The mission planners thought the worst. So they sent out search and rescue teams to see what had happened. But when the search and rescue teams got there in the Odin system and checked along the route that the GQ-12 was taking, there was nothing. There was no debris, no signs of combat, nothing. The ship just vanished from existence. 30 years later, a Carrick is spotted on the moon of what was it called? It's called like Linton, I think. Indra, on the moon, the only moon of the Indra system, which is this moon that orbits, which is the habitable moon that orbits around Indra's gas giant. Now, the Indra system is known as the Kiyaka system or something like that. It is one of those systems that both Xi'an and human inhabit. They both live in that system. So on the only habitable moon where the Xi'an and humans have been inhabiting, they find a Carrick. Now, this is before Carricks were sold to the public. So there are no public Carricks. There are no civilian Carricks. This is a military ship. This ship was found intact, not crashed, not responding to any hails. When they investigated it, they discovered that it was S-1132, the missing GQ-12 that had been missing 30 years ago. When they investigated, there was no signs of any struggles. There was no signs, any indication that the crew was in distress. Food was still locked away. Medical supplies were still locked away. The ship's systems were still functioning. The ship was still working. It had some wear and tear from time and being on a planet, but it wasn't disabled. It was working. The crew was gone. There was no indication where the crew went. Absolutely no idea where the crew went. We still don't know where that crew went today. This is a ship in lore, a Carrick in lore, a military Carrick in lore, that disappeared almost 110 years ago, or almost 100 years ago. So, thanks, Toys R Me. Radios and games, Star Citizen. Listening to my stream. Nice, Adam. I'm not leaving Twitch. I stream both at Twitch and YouTube on Tuesday nights. Now, here is my theory about the Good Queen 12. The Good Queen 12 disappears in 2836, right? It doesn't show up again until 30 years later in 2866 on a moon where humans and Xi'an live together. At the time, the Carrick was incredibly classified. That's the reason why they weren't selling them to civilians. So this is a military ship which is incredibly classified, that is doing survey missions, that was only built like in 23. So we're talking within just over 10 years since these ships first launched. My theory is that the Xi'an abducted the crew. The Xi'an abducted the crew. And then studied the ship, but then because they couldn't put the crew back and let them go, because then it would be create an international incident, they killed the crew or captured them for study. Or they paid for somebody else to steal it. Excuse me. Perhaps paid off the crew to go disappear, to go away somewhere, while they studied the ship, and then dumped it on the world that they had access to, which the humans would eventually find. Yes, Corona. So, freaking GQ-12, man. GQ-12. Now, another ship, another Carrick. This is a civilian Carrick. The Gronald's Hope. Okay, built in 2948. Within shortly after is what the lore says. So probably within the first month or so, or first couple of months of the ship's construction in 2948, the Gronald's Hope was given a kill on sight order by the Advocacy. This is something that doesn't happen very often. Basically, the Advocacy says is if anyone sees this ship, blow it up. This is a Carrick, guys. And there's no indication as to why they gave this order. With 3 days after the order was issued, the Gronald's Hope was spotted in the Kellogg system, and mercenaries were a group of mercenaries went out and destroyed the ship. We still don't know why they put a KOS order on it. Not a clue. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like the GQ-12 was before or was after the Meser era. So was this Gronald's Hope. Have a good night there, Target Drone. So yeah. We don't know what's going on. The rumor that's in lore is that the Gronald's Hope contracted some sort of disease, some sort of plague that the UEE knew about and couldn't afford to let them land and transmit the plague on a populated systems. So they had to be destroyed before they could land anywhere. Maybe they went to some place like they shouldn't have. I don't know. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Idris, because we're going to be talking about the Idris here eventually as well. Now, the Idris is interesting. So a lot of people have asked me the question, why do we still use ships which are hundreds of years old? And the answer is, these ships are not hundreds of years old. Most of these ships are actually new. They're just using the same design from 100 years old, slightly updating the specs and the systems and that kind of stuff. But the Idris, for instance, is the first ship of the UEE. It was built for the UEE and was designed slightly before the UEE was founded. It was actually, this is the funny part, in lore, the UEE, or the UPE, the government that preceded the UEE, built or planning to build the Idris as a corvette that would physically dock 2 fighters onto its hull. I think CIG is making a funny. Because I think that may have been the original plan for the Idris, was that it would be a small ship that physically docked 2 ships on it, like we have with the Connie. And then they decided they were going to do a landing bay, and then it expanded. But in lore, once the Messers came to power, The Mezzers decided they were going to increase the size because they still needed it to do patrol missions, but they needed it for different reasons. They were the ones who added the fuck off cannon on the front, the rail gun on the front of it. And upgraded even further than that. But the first flight, so they classify them into flights. The first flight of Idrises was only 1 year. Like maybe 10 or 12 Idrises were built. The problem is they had this problem that they lit on fire very easily. So they had to go back and rework them to make them better. Which again, I think is a reference to a post that a player made about how do you fight a fire on an Idris if this is the case? Because I remember there being a player post about firefighting in 0G, and specifically how would you deal with it with an Idris because it wasn't built very well for it. So then they updated it for Flight 2. And Flight 2 lasted from 25... look it up real quickly. $2,560 to $2,800. Now, the second flight had a 30-year operation span. What they would do is the Idris would be built. It would function as an Idris for 30 years. After that 30-year lifespan was done, it would be decommissioned, flown back to Idris to lock the Idris 4. And then shipbreakers from Aegis Dynamics would then tear apart the ship and salvage the ship. They could recycle up to 35% of the ship's hull, and then they would take that recycled material and put them into building new Idrises. Now, in 2800, something changed. The Idris itself was given, there was new techniques that were used so that they could increase the lifespan of the Idris. So the Idris went from being a 30-year lifespan to a 60-year lifespan. So now you've got Idrises that are lasting longer. And in 2800, the UEE passed what's called the Surplus Act. Now, the Surplus Act was enacted for a very specific reason. Between the time of the Mezzers and the new UEE, many companies collapsed because they were so tightly connected to the Mezzers. Those companies that collapsed, some of the biggest ones were shipping manufacturers, people who companies that built large cargo ships. Now, the problem is that, and we know this because this is actually something that's also happened was also discussed in the Crusader Industries lore, which is why Crusader Industries and MISC were able to become big companies, even though they were founded after the Mezzers were around, because they stepped into the role of heavy transport. So with no companies replacing them in the early days of the new UEE, the UEE decided that they needed to allow for the purchase of military surplus mothballed cargo ships. Now, the problem about these cargo ships is some of these cargo ships were huge. Like the size were technically registered as destroyers or frigates or corvettes. So in the law, they wrote for the surplus that anything that's destroyer or below can be sold to the public, but it had to be stripped down of military parts. So Idrises began to be sold, but most of these Idrises were not sold as combat ships, but were sold as cargo vessels. So an Idris would have its front gun removed, most of its weapons taken off, and the landing bays would become cargo bays. So because they could open them up and land them and take them out. And because the Idris was heavily armored, it had long ranges because it was a long-range patrol craft. It was perfect for an armored transport. Now, civilians are buying Idrises as cargo vessels. And at the same time, Aegis is figuring out how to increase the lifespan of the Idris. Well, come 30 years later, the military can no longer, or the Aegis Dynamics can no longer rely on recycled Idrises to make new Idrises. So they have to increase their purchasing of natural materials, raw materials. So now suddenly the new Idrises being made are better quality because they're using high grade quality materials. It also means that you have, because civilians started using the Idrises, they started liking them. And many companies and individuals wanted access to an Idris. So they had to start, because the demand for civilian Idrises was outstripping the supply, they had to start building Idrises. And that became the Idris P. So the Idris P was built as a civilian Idris. It was designed specifically for civilian market, which is where the Idris K comes in, because the Idris K is not made by Aegis Dynamics. It's made by some third market company that essentially uses the mounting point for the Idris railgun and replaces it with a beam cannon. That's nuts. And all of this seems to have been taken straight from CIG's own experiences with the Idris. The Idris P was being sold because they originally sold the Idris M, but there was too much demand for things, so they decided, let's sell a cheaper version of the Idris that doesn't have the main gun on it, but has more weapons on it. So now they decided that was actually, instead of, originally it was supposed to be some like an advocacy Idris, but now they've decided that it's a militia Idris. It's designed for militia work. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's really smart. They also have the same thing with the Carrick. The Carrick actually has its own day. The release of the first Carrick to the civilian market was on February 21st, 2938. So if you guys want to celebrate Carrick Day, it's February 21st. And it's still celebrated by Carrick fans today. They talk about the Carrick craze. They talk about how they knew it was going to take a while for them to convert it from military to civilian. So they pre-sold Carricks, and that the future Carrick captains were buying and trading and selling their new Carricks, and they were following the updates as they went along. CIG is just really cheeky when it comes to writing these ships. Hey, Chief Golly, how you doing, buddy? Big head, yes. Hey, White Wolf, how you doing, buddy? Yes, Cargo Idris. That's what I said, Dan. I don't know why it's not. Oh, yeah. I really hope for the dream that they had of some come true about radio stations. I think those are probably good ideas. But yes, Dan, Cargo Idris. In fact, some of the cool Idrises that are out there are the BX-24, BX-14, BX-15, and BX-18 were all armored transports. They had all their guns stripped off and were used by an aid company to render aid to the coral system after a solar storm just killed crops, prevented any crops from growing for 18 months. So because of these solar storms is when I guess they used the Idris because it was armored and had defenses against solar storms and could make the trip pretty quickly. One of my favorite Idrises is the Annex. The Annex is actually a historical salvage group. So a historical salvage group buys the Annex and then installs high quality sensors, better than the military sensors that were on it. Or I think they stripped the military sensors, but like really high quality sensors, which were designed for exploration and salvage, and then purchased a fleet of drones. So they flew the drones out of the Idris hangar and used the Idris to find historical wrecks that they would then catalog. Badass use of an Idris. I'm just going to say that. Hey, Arthur. Okay. These are the follows there, White Wolf and Malibu. What's your thoughts on the Buccaneer as a fighter? Right now, it's a target, not a fighter. It's a death trap, not a fighter. With the current flight model, the way it is, the way that the ship is built, don't bother. Its sole purpose is to be fodder for Squadron 42. Fortunately, ships just aren't getting maneuverability. Those kind of ships aren't getting the maneuverability they need. So right now, I wouldn't bother with it. More expensive. It's more expensive than it's worth. If you're gonna get a light fighter, get the Arrow. The Arrow is a better ship. You missed a lot there, John. We talked about the Idris. We've talked about the Carrick. We talked about some of the stories behind some of those. And we've also talked a little bit about the Talon. Flight model's fine. I mean, like, I know Star Citizen PTU 3.10 went into Wave 2 PTU recently. I haven't tried it, but you'll find that there's a lot of hullabaloo over nothing. The flight model is fine. It's going to make things a little bit harder to fly, but it just means you're going to have to be a little bit slower in terms of maneuverability. They want you to slow down, essentially, which is good, but there's some problems with it, in my opinion, especially around light fighters. Light fighters shouldn't have to slow down. Yeah, exactly, Notorious Bug. Oh, if the Bucky should be a coffin, then the Bucky shouldn't be sold for $110. The Bucky shouldn't be sold for to players who don't know what it is, but think that looks kind of cool because it kind of has that X-wing vibe to it. Like, it's a pointless ship. Don't buy it. It's a lot of money for nothing. I hate Gemini. Cast-Deck Arms, baby. But speaking of Gemini, hold on. Gemini lore. Founded on January 3rd, 2667. And an uncommonly warm night at New Junction, when New Junction police received a comm claiming that shots were fired at a bar popular with off-world haulers. Officers responding to the call rushed inside to find an enraptured audience watching Polly Dial discharging a weapon at a block of ballistic gelatin covered by heavy armor. Several smoking holes in the armor leading to a shredded gel underneath indicated the only victim in the establishment. The police quickly charged Polly with violating the armistice zone and confiscated a weapon. An incident report described as custom-made, unregistered hand cannon. When questioned about why he would fire a live weapon in public, she replied, a simple statement, to make some money. Polly quickly paid off her fine and returned to the bar to pick up a list from the bartender. On it were names of patrons that had made a down payment for one of her homemade weapons. These became the first official orders for Gemini weapons. I like that. I like that attitude. Still think Gemini is made for rich folk. The new flight model. Do you think the new one is preparing us for cap ships and the fact that they're slow and can't operate on planets? Yeah, 100%. Larger ships need to operate slower, but yeah. I'm screwing up her name, but it's it's Polly. Polly Dalal. Polly Dalal, I think is how it's spoken. Let me zoom in on the letter. Yeah, Polly Dalal. You'll find that the smaller ships are slightly more maneuverable, but they still maneuver like garbage compared to the heavier ship, or like compared to what they should be in combat. Earned the same, exactly. It was a fine. She risked a fine, and she paid it off and then earned money. It's Pollidal, Dalal, which I'm assuming is Arabic, possibly Farsi. It doesn't sound like a European name. Could be. It's an Arabic name. There's also a Dalal clan in India, so it could be Sanskrit. I like this song. It's very nice. Sounds like Farsi or Indian? Yeah, could be. It sounds like it's an Indian surname, so. Ah, that's what it was. So Gemini started as a ballistic weapons manufacturer in a time when ballistic weapons fell out of favor with most people in the market. Most people were dealing with chemical or energy weapons because of all of the innovations that had been made during the Second Tevaran War. And Gemini was just like, we can punch through armor. The problem about the current light ships, light fighters, is that the current light fighters do not feel like the current light fighters do not feel like you can dance around a larger target. The Super Mustang is decent in the new model, or is it subpar? I don't know. Hey, I've come up with questions about questions and waffles. First question: when do you think the Asperic Talon is coming? Asperic Talon is probably coming. If they publish it, it's either coming in 310 as a concept ship, or it's coming in sometime after that. Gemini, yeah. Oh shit, guys, do you want to know what a Tevaran weapon is? Buy Gemini. Not even kidding. Polly Dalal and Clem were the founders of Gemini. Clem was a Tavaran. He was the one who built and designed the weapons, and Dalal was the one who sold it. Yeah, it's a Tavaran weapon. The Geminis are Tavaran weapon designs because he's the one who built them. Clem knew nothing of his roots, only that his family participated in the Tavaran cultural purge before fleeing the New Junction through the Tavaran Wars. Though the Tavaran Wars were long over, the slums humans residents shunned the family after the house burned down. Under suspicious circumstances, Clem was a lone survivor and struggled to live on the streets. That's when he met Polly, who hated going home to her abusive and alcoholic parents. The two became inseparable. They moved into an abandoned shack to survive. Pulled petty crimes using Clem as a distraction to protect himself and Polly. Clem became obsessed with weapons and led to the creation of Gemini's first official weapon, the unregistered hand cannon. Yeah, it wasn't actually known that the weapons were built by Tavaran until the 29th century, until this century, probably very recently, that Gemini finally let everyone know that their weapons are designed by Tavaran. Nice, pilot. Samurai bird guns. Oh, it is, yeah. '29th century, so 2800s, yeah. So the revelation that Clem was the one who built the weapons came out in 2812. This revelation turned out to be perfectly timed and revitalized the brand that consumers had come to consider a bit bland and outdated. This led to profits in 2812. So Gemini started to make weapons as a means to make money, hid the fact that Tavaran was the one who was designing him, and then when the Mezers were overthrown, they finally revealed that Clem was the man behind was the bird alien behind the weapons, and snobby elites started to buy it because it was not just a good weapon, but it was an oddity. It's unique. It's the only human weapon manufacturer designed by a Tavaran. Thank you guys. Yeah, we're not gonna download the game today. These talks I only do for about 2 hours or so, and then we call it a night kind of thing. It's mostly just to hang out and talk about Star Citizen. But thank you for letting me know. The new patch is dropped. At some point down the line, players will be able to manufacture ships or weapons similar to base building. Probably not out of whole cloth, but I think you'll likely be able to modify, which is what they called overclocking, as well as probably construct, but not build brand new weapons. You wouldn't be able to invent a weapon, but you'd be able to build like an arc light, but only if you get the right specs and the manufacturing licenses and stuff like that. We don't know if the Tavaran used energy weapons during the war. There's no records of it necessarily. I may have to go back through the stories and see if they talk about Tavaran energy weapons. But from what I can gather, the Tavaran generally preferred to use melee weapons in war if they had to, which would tell me that they probably used energy weapons because they're quieter. The Tavaran are not stand and fight. The Tavaran are work their way, use stealth and coercion to get you into a position that's bad and then attack. They're very similar to the Xi'an, but the Xi'an don't believe in the fight. They believe in all of the clandestine stuff. A best war to win is when you don't have to fire a shot. That's the Xi'an kind of philosophy. Whereas the Tavaran make sure your enemies are in the worst possible position, then attack. We'll see. I mean, I honestly think that CIG has realized that initially they thought that the modular bays would be like easier to make than ships, but it turns out that a modular bay is as complicated to make as a ship. So that's the reason why they've kind of stepped away from modularity, because they can do it technically, but technically doing it and actually doing it are two different things. But we'll see, because I think another issue of it is the whole same issues of docking and undocking and that kind of thing. The physics rework, being able to have two items which are specifically different, being able to be meshed into the same physics grid. Like tech-wise, look at tech for the Tavaran. Yeah, the shield tech is not going to work the way that it's described in lore, but it may have something similar. The Prowler, perfect example. Board the big moose cap ship with highly skilled small teams, disrupt rather than fleet to fleet conflict. Exactly. If the Tavaran had to get into fleet to fleet conflict, they only would do so at a last possible moment, or when they had numerical advantage, or they had strategic advantage. It does, yes. The fact that they have those ships, but those shields were invented after the First Tavaran War. So they might have done it after the First Tavaran War. I think so, John. I think we're likely to see a military version of the Carrick. I don't know when, but the lore makes it very explicit that the military version of the Carrick is different in almost every way, shape, and form from the civilian version. So depending on if it's in Squadron 42 or not, we may see it, but we may not be able to play with it. Kind of like how we have the military version of the Hornet, the F-7A, and then the civilian version of that very same Hornet, the F-7C. They look different, but practically function the same. I think that's more likely what you're going to see with the Carrick, is that the Carrick, the military version of the Carrick, is going to have a visual distinction from it rather than a practical one. Yeah. Possibly quad turrets, possibly, my guess is that they likely have better sensors, and probably more accommodations. So like that whole rec room that they have, instead of it being a rec room, it would probably be like a dining hall, or more like sleeping accommodations, or there'd be a room for more supplies. The medical bay, one of those storage rooms for the medical bay, may be a research center rather than a storage room. There might be the landing bay for the Pisces might be a little bit bigger, so you don't have the Pisces, but you have like an arrow or like a terrapin being able to land in it. I don't know. Probably more likely though that it's just going to be mostly cosmetic rather than physical, because again, the F-7A isn't that different from the F-7C. It just looks different. Hey, Solthorn. What are the chances of the Aspera building a Tavaran cap ship for civilians like 890 jump size? It depends. With the militia mobilization initiative, it could be something like a Corvette sized. CIG seems to be in love with the Corvette. The Corvette size is the perfect size for CIG to build, because CIG realizes it has just enough players that with a 50-player server, for instance, you can run a Corvette pretty easily. And most people would be able to crew a 50-player or a Corvette with NPCs. And it has enough cargo space and enough accoutrement to be specialized into a very specific thing without costing a ton of money. So it's the perfect answer to people who want better ships that can go longer ranges. for very specific purposes. The Carrick, for instance, exploration ship. The Hammerhead, anti-fighter and anti-torpedo ship. The Polaris, anti-capital ship. The proposed RSI Odin that was leaked is like a brawling ship, like a heavy brawling ship for anti-capital ships. The Nautilus, the Aegis Nautilus, is a mine layer ship. All these sorts of things. You could see something like a troop transport. That's the size of a Corvette. I could see a other things. Boarding vessel. Let's see what else. E-warfare. Command and control, like an AWACS ship. That's the size of a Corvette. That kind of thing. Exactly. Next question kind of ties into other, but what are your thoughts on being able to obtain some sort of BP from military grade ships like the Idris I mean, you're going to be able to do so, but that's going to be reputation based in game there, John. You'll be able to get military grade equipment, but you have to have good reputation with the military or from some group who has access to it. I guess the military Carrick doesn't use the belly modules as empty cargo. Possibly not. You're right there, Terminal Hamster. It could be different. Size increase on all hard points at F7A. So I think that's probably the biggest one you'd see with the Carrick, is that instead of having size 4 guns on the Carrick, the military Carrick might have size 5 guns on the turrets rather than quad turrets. Or it could have quad turrets the same size. Is there a big call in Devar live in far-off planet that the UE was too lazy to colonize? It's harsh conditions there, Felix. The planet that you're talking about, I can't remember the name of it. I did a video on it, but it's one jump away from Project Archangel, which is the Synth World project. The planet itself is harsh. Lots of electrical storms. Dust everywhere, mostly prefab outposts. So, and they seem to be, the Tavaran there seem to want to recapture their culture without going back to what had failed them. Like Rajora has failed them, but they want to do something to rebuild the Tavaran people. So. Definition of Corvette in this context. So Corvettes are the best way of describing ships, the larger ships, is based off of number of players or number of positions that they have, though tonnage seems to be an issue as well. For instance, a frigate, the Idris, which is the only frigate we have, is 38,000 metric tons, whereas the Carrick, which is considered a Corvette, is a little over 4,000 or close to 4,000 metric tons. The Hammerhead, which is also considered a Corvette, is actually lighter than the Carrick. It's something like 35,000 metric tons, something like that. So I'm guessing that first off, they say over 65 meters. They say is a Corvette class, apparently, according to the UEE. But I think you're also looking at tonnage. Something that's less than 10,000 tons is probably, or around 10,000 tons or less is Corvette. Anything above that would be a frigate, probably up to 40,000, which would then be a destroyer. Then maybe 60 to 100,000 for a cruiser, and then 200,000 tons for something like those guys. I don't mean equipment. Say you have the base Civ Idris, but you get an Idris M. Oh, the points exist. You can buy equipment for... What are you talking about when you say BP? You're talking about like the gun on the Idris M? Because if you're talking about the gun on the Idris M, that's what the Idris K is. The Idris K is an upgrade that replaces puts a beam weapon on that Idris P. Blueprint. Yeah. I mean, the spot is still there. It's still an attachment point for the Idris P. You just don't have it. You have to upgrade to it. Like by an S7, yeah. Do you want to show the hit piece, or we don't care? I'm okay either way. What hit piece, Solotherm? Dude, there's a hit piece on video against Star Citizen, just came out today. It's Inside Gaming, guys. It's Rooster Teeth. Like, at this point, I don't know what you can say about Rooster Teeth other than they don't like Star Citizen. And Inside Gaming doesn't like Star Citizen. And if you do like Star Citizen, I live in Austin, Inside Gaming. I live close to where you guys are. Feel free to have me on your show. I can explain how Star Citizen works. The reason why they're doing it is because there's no other news right now for them, and they know that rageaholics will click on their video. It's the same old stuff. It's the same old. It's the summer. People are upset. Some people are throwing a temper tantrum and on Reddit or on somewhere else, and then they'll talk about it. But Inside Gaming doesn't even do its research. They don't even know what Star Citizen is. Like, they still quote stuff and ideas about Star Citizen that are years out of date. So don't bother. Me personally, let's see. Not for giveaways, but for giveaways. They've given a bunch of stuff for me for giveaways. And then I won a LTI Freelancer Max in a competition, and then I was given an LTI Arrow for because they wanted to use my my intro video for lore in their on their welcome page, so they gave me an LTI Arrow. But I think ever since I want to say the Mole? Yeah, I think it's the Mole. Ever since the Mole came out, like every time they've been doing like a new ship, they give me one to give away. So let's see. How many has that been? I've been my Prowler. Not a Carrick. Less than 10, I'd say, over my entire career. Rooster Teeth will like Star Citizen when it's released and it's popular, because then they can do stories on it that'll help them like, especially Inside Gaming. And I'm not here to shit on Inside Gaming. They got to make money, man. It's hard out there. All right. It's not easy. So they got to make some money. And so if people will rage click a video, they will make that video. My problem is with them is that they just tend to not do the research. You know, basic fundamental research they lack to do. I don't know why. Do they know what the underlying tech is, Dan? That's the real response. It's like, what are they talking about? Ask for what tech. If they're talking about the shaders and stuff like that, it's being updated all the time. If they're talking about the technology that allows the game to function, there's nobody else doing stuff like that. Scam Daddy. I love that name. CR Scam Daddy. Yeah, thank you, Montana. I'm curious, how much, why are you asking me about money or ships? Were you going to accuse me of being like a paid shill to say good things about CIG? Because I've said bad things about CIG. Trust me. I have my issues with CIG, which I've expressed in the past. They've never given me money. Yeah, I know. It's Gus, I think, hasn't likes it. The engine is the Lumberyard engine. It's the same as the Crytek engine. It gets updated all the time. And a lot of the engine, they've built it themselves. I mean, like the idea that Star Citizen, it's practically its own engine, its own game. And again, what do they mean by engine? Most of the time when people say the engines are going to be outdated, they mean graphics, they mean being able to handle things. This isn't a situation where like Bethesda, where they have an engine that they've been kicking around and updating and not dealing with the basic problems with for 20 years. By the time Star Citizen releases, there'll be several Lumberyard engine games probably released. But just because Unreal makes a new engine every so often doesn't always mean that it's better than the other engines out there. It depends on what you're looking at. And almost every company that makes an engine or makes a game will take the engine it has and modify it significantly. The idea that someone takes an off-the-shelf engine and then just uses that is very few. Not very many companies do that anymore. If you have the time and the money to build your own engine, they will do it. And if they can't, a lot of them will take an off-the-shelf engine like Unreal or Lumberyard, and then they will or Unity, and they'll upgrade it based off of their capabilities. Each engine is usually modified to the games necessary. You wouldn't be able to take Star Citizen's engine, the Star engine, the Lumberyard engine, but modified by Star Citizen. You wouldn't be able to take that modification and then just port it over to another game and then make another game. They still need to do significant changes to it. Thank you, Dibley. Yeah, a lot of those earlier ones that I did, which were the lectures, are very poor in quality in comparison. A lot of them changed over time. I definitely did more of the less of the lectures and more of the actual videos. It took me a while to get used to those because I was getting the idea for the lore out there. More Dazzler, you're gonna have to speak in English. I don't read. I don't know what that is. Or type in English. Speaking English. Well, some people don't like the fact that there was not a lot of like visual aids, and some of them are way too long for lectures. Like the first one I did is 50 minutes long as a lecture. It's pretty nuts. I think it's Arabic, but I thought it might kind of looks like it could be Thai, so I don't know. How's it going, buddy? Or Sanskrit or Farsi. Or any of those languages? Gotcha. I knew bits and bobs about Lumberyard and CIG's customization with it. I just wanted to get the correct information, talking to them about them. Well, what I'd ask them, Dan, if they have a question about it, is ask them, what do they mean by engine? What do they mean by overall? Are you talking about graphics? Because CIG's graphics engine is separate from necessarily just Lumberyard, but Lumberyard is updated over time.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
There we go. Oh, nice. What language is that, More Dazzler? Just curious. See, some people learn through lectures. That's true. It's just like some people will learn through lectures better than, like I learn through lectures better than other activities. But as a teacher, I've learned that lectures tend to be harder to get across to high school students, even older high school students, and it's better to limit them as much as possible. Get only the bare basic essential needs out there. So it's a little different. Arab. Okay. So, Aster, I have a question, and I hope you can point me to the right direction. Where do I go to find someone to mine with? I don't have a mole, but I love to mine. There's a bunch of corporations out there that do it, like in-game orgs. You might check in the org pages for that. Let's find somebody who has an active Discord on org. So, like, go to an org, see if they have an active Discord. Go to their Discord to hang out with some of those people there. I don't know exactly which mining companies out there that might do that, though. Thanks for the follow there, Flying MP. Probably for a little bit longer. Not like an hour or so, but yeah, at most an hour. There will be ship-based bars. There are ship-based bars. There's the Phoenix, there's the 600i, and the 890 Jump. And I will be serving alcohol in those bars. But likely, if CIG continues to do what the last time I checked, the station bars don't work. They haven't implemented station bars. So I'll probably pick a station bar and then serve beer from those station bars, because I know a way to get station bars. The first bar I'm visiting is probably Wally's. Yes, I have, Regatta. Yes, I have. Of Bebop in the verse? I don't know, Carl. I am 100% for that. I believe that CIG needs to make a Corvette, which is the Bebop. A ship that is designed for bounty hunters and has has enough space for at least one ship, like the size of a Gladius. I think that needs to happen, or at least like an Avenger. Do you think the Javelin will be the biggest combat ship we will be able to obtain in Star Citizen? Yeah, well, you'll get a bangle, but I think the way that they'll do the bangles is you'll find one that's disassembled and you have to recover it and reassemble it. I still think the 600i. I mean, I think the best bar ship, if they could make it work, would be the Caterpillar, because they had an idea for a recreation module back in the day, and the Caterpillar recreation module had a bar in it. That would be the best one, because you can also have some cargo for cargo space. You could also have some places for extended living space and that kind of thing. Will Shout be in game beverage? I don't know. You're saying stout? They have lots of different beers in 310. There's lots of different styles of beers. Now, you're a caterpillar. I'm a butterfly. You need an Idris for your bar. Then reformed when? Solotherm? That's nuts. Dan, I'm going to be honest with you. Don't try to get your friends interested in the game yet. Talk with them about it, but I'd say, like, if they had problems with the free flight, it's not ready for them. You know, Wait for a time when they would be ready to play it. That could be beta, that could be longer, but don't force it, because I've done that with friends in the past and they got bad experience. They had a bad experience and they never played it again. So the key is to be patient and purchase and get the players, get your friends to involved when they absolutely need to. March 2018. Nice. I'll buy you an inverse beverage at Wally's. Thank you, Sharp. I think the big difference between the haters and the white knights is similar to USA politics. Both see a problem without thinking about a thing and attack it different ways, only seeing one side or the other. It's not necessarily that. I think saying there are haters and white knights is oversimplifying it. There are some people who want to see Star Citizen fail or just want to fuck with Star Citizen fans because they love to get a rise out of Star Citizen fans. And then there are some people who genuinely think CIG is running a scam and they're super angry about it. And then there are people who are critical of the game. They want to see it improved, but they're pessimistic because they don't think that CIG is being run properly. And there's some other people who have problems with the game but aren't super pessimistic. They just want some things to change. Then you got people who enjoy the game more than dislike it, but want to see some changes. You have some people who are optimistic, but aren't 100% on board or 100% like for the game. Then you've got people who legitimately love the game. And they don't like to see bad things, or they isolate themselves from bad things and only focus on the good things. And then you've got people who go out of their way to defend Star Citizen. And anyone can fall anywhere on those spectrums. There was a great chart that somebody made about like the difference between a troll and a white knight, where you fall on that is kind of a spectrum. It's not an off or on; it's a spectrum kind of experience on Stars. It's a spectrum on the spectrum. Yes. Of the T consent vid? Yeah, I mean, I would say that someone like Failure to Report, FTR, he is a critical, but I think he's a more pessimistic. He tends to see CIG as being incompetent in terms of its running, in terms of the people at the top. He wants to see the game succeed. He'd like to see some things changed, and he has fun with it. He just is not optimistic about the game becoming a fun game or fully completing it, which is why he still makes content with it, but I don't think he hates Star Citizen. And I don't think he hates everybody on here. I talk with FTR. He comes on my streams. I come on his streams when I can too, and I watch his videos. Lots of us in the Star Citizen content creation universe understand that like the best thing you can do is be critical and without being a dick. Because at the end of the day, it's just a game, and there are 600 human beings who work on this game. Only maybe a handful of those human beings are people who are at the top and are making these decisions. Most of them are just doing a job. And some of them really love it. Some of them it's just a job. But it's to be respectful of the people who are working on this, because it's not like they're not doing the work. I think that's what most content creators in Star Citizen kind of spectrum in our universe of the game tend to agree on. Nice there, Mr. Shofu. I'm glad you got it. Is it the logo shirt? That's why I work with Designed by Humans, because they do a really good job with design. Like their shirts are really good quality for the price. Is there lore on any ships for the UE that we haven't seen a concept for? No, not that I know of. There are definitely lore for concept. There are lore for ships that exist in the Star Citizen universe that are not flyable and we have not seen or may not ever be flyable. A good example of that is the Aegis Bearcat and the RSI Zeus, both which we have seen, but one is an old ship that doesn't exist anymore. The X1 is another good example of that. Which was the X1, I think it's X7 is actually what it is. The X7, which was the first jump drive ship, which is what the Aurora eventually became. So think of an old clunkier Aurora, in a time period when ships were multi-crew, always. This is the Pegasus, yeah. With the gray weave, nice. Pegasus, yeah. There's also the Zeus. You think we need to stop bashing the devs? You do so much work, it's got to be demoralizing. I know super demoralizing customer service job I do, where there's no love for the good things. Yeah, but I think it's also, and this is gonna sound a little defensive of CIG, but this is based off of my experience because I know people who work at CIG. I think, generally speaking, the developers of CIG, like the managers of CIG, do care about their employees. In some cases, possibly more so than other companies in the same kind of field. And they do their best to improve the work environment of their employees. So a good example of this, in my mind, is... based off what CIG has said, is the staggered development. A lot of people thought that staggered development was done because it would improve the quality, like you'd get more stuff than they were currently getting. When in reality, the way CIG couched it as is that they didn't have enough time to test the materials and didn't have enough time to play with new ideas. So development teams every 3 months, so they wanted to give them extra time. To me, that means we need to make our developers happy because they're burned out after 3 months of crunching through this stuff. We need to give them more time to experiment. We need to give them more time to take a break, to get some sleep, to not be gaming, to not be playing the game or working on the game, and take time off and not impact the schedule of what they're supposed to be releasing. It was a quality of life for the developers change, not necessarily improvement in terms of speed. But byproduct is, if you have happier developers that are getting more sleep and having more time to look at and fix bugs, usually you're going to get more content or better content. That's at least in theory. But it's not meant for that. It was meant for the betterment of the developers. So that's an example of, like, I think they tend to care about that. Do I think the UAE needs another smaller carrier type, abstracting any sales or other stuff? Kraken analog or the Idris analog? The Kraken and the Idris are the same size. By the way, guys, that's the reality. They're about the same size. Possibly. I think they need something more along the lines of the Pegasus. The Pegasus already exists. But I don't know how big the Pegasus is, if it's a destroyer or a cruiser size. It's supposed to be an escort carrier, so I don't know. If maybe something the size of a javelin. I could see Anvil. Honestly, for a carrier ship, more likely it's going to be Aegis or RSI, probably RSI, would build something like a carrier ship. Aegis tends to build the pew-pew guns, and I would love to see an Anvil battlecruiser. I still think that fits in their wheelhouse, but like a planetary assault carrier is going to be a Corvette-sized ship. I can guarantee you that. And that's one of those things that, like I said earlier, is like Corvette is a perfect size for something like a planetary assault carrier, like the Marines have, where you basically pull a ship up right to the freaking beach and open up and let tanks roll out. You know, that's kind of what the Hercules is. It's kind of what it is for. But I'm talking about bigger than that. They haven't said anything. The last they said that they didn't like the performance. And the big thing they said was there were issues they were working out from closed tests that they did with players. My guess is that they're waiting for the server to client refactor, which is coming in 3.11, to get done, because that seems to be the biggest issue around desync. The M2, yeah, the M2. Did I say the C2? I said the Hercules. Same thing. Yeah, the nails, the drop pods. That'd be cool. Oh, I forgot that I turned that on and then didn't actually turn that on. Turn that off. Oh, the feed stopped? Okay, yeah, I see that now. You're welcome for that solid gold idea, CIG. Yeah. I can still see you guys. It stopped on my screen for some reason. Has the Gib amphibious assault ship, Gib heavy vehicle dropship. You already have the heavy vehicle dropship. It's called the M2. Adam, the Hercules M2. It's what it's designed for. The Anviled Unicorn. That's just got to have a giant F-off cannon on the front. Giant fuck off like size 9 cannon sticking out the front. 2 size 9s. Channel points. Here we go. That off. Like a heavy dropship, yeah. Something along the lines of like a forward. Again, this is an idea that I've had that I'd love to see. Something like a Pioneer, but instead of building outposts, it becomes an outpost. It's a flying outpost. It's the command centers from StarCraft. That their sole job is to land on a planet, deploy defense turrets, and give people like garages and that kind of thing, but their job is to be a forward operating base, a mobile forward operating base where you can do repairs for vehicles, you can do refuel and repairs for ships. You have turrets that'll defend it from ground attack and air attack with deployable cover for troops. But its sole job, it does terribly in anything else, but you deploy it to defend stuff. The concierge collaboration. It's the Talon, at least based off that leak. Voyagerian star, Tabby star is not consistent with the alien megastructure that would dim all the wavelengths of light. Yeah, there's a lot of those. Yeah, new patch just hit. Thank you. Someone came in and asked about it. Talked about it. Do you think a war between factions in the verse could players take part in these wars and determine the outcome? Yeah, that's part of the plan, actually, for sure. Bob, cool, like that idea. Yeah, I like that idea too. I think it's a good idea for. It may be too early for something like that, but I think that's a good idea for something around the Pioneer release. So it's something you would drop down before Pioneer, and you would use that as a staging area and defensive point, like a Presidio. which is the Spanish forts that they used to put next to missions. Just call it I always think it was a Drake, but it could be a great anvil ship, the Anvil Fortress. I can answer you, but I don't know if they'll if they'll be able to answer. I can give you the basic answer, based off of what I understand. The reason why they prioritize some things over others is because they're done. If the team that builds the caves is done, they're going to move on to the next topic. And apparently because based off of conversations that I've seen them having on places like Inside Star Citizen and that kind of thing. Basically, because they were done with the caves, that team then went off to make the prisons. And then now that they finished the prisons, they're going to make something else. So if a team is done with a specific aspect of the game, they'll move on to the next aspect of the game they can make. So that's how you get body dragging without medical gameplay, because the medical team wasn't ready for it, but the animation team was. So you have the animation team being done, so you might as well put it in there before it's ready. Essentially how that works. So if it's ready to put in, they're going to put it in there. Thank you, Purple Wheelchair. You'll probably like the next couple, because if you guys watched my Aegis ship video where I broke down the lore of Aegis ships, the first museum video, I ham it up for the intro. And so I've done the same for these two. What are your thoughts on base building, and what do CIG need to make it a reality? They need dynamic damage, or compartmentalized damage that you have with ships, and they need to make outposts destroyable. That'd be my guess, because outposts need to use components just like ships do. So they need to redesign the outposts from being what they are now, which is basically props, to being something more. Too many Oreos. A chameleon skin, active camo? I don't think so. I hope not. The Nova, the Ballista, and I'm hoping eventually make an actual APC. I'd love to see an actual APC. The Drake Presidio. I'd love to see that too, but... Great Cat Capital Buggy with a size 12 air conditioning unit and 8-track space cassette player. You're talking about the right thing for me. Speaking of that, what are your thoughts on baseball? I already talked about that. I want to see a Moab carpet bombing that one ship will do. The A2, yeah, the Hercules A2. I think, yeah, with the Hercules A2 having the ability to drop bombs, you need to have those bombs matter. And I think the best way of doing it is to make static targets destroyable, which would require some work. I don't think it would require a lot of work, but I do think it would require more work than is really needed right now, than really is possible to work on right now. My eyes are all kind of weird. Was able to download Star Citizen? Nice, Alpha. Yeah, if ships have shields, ships as large as like the Bengal have shields, you assume that stations have shields. If stations have shields, then outposts need to have shields too. That'd be badass, White Wolf. How does because the middle last part of the idea justify putting it into an alpha without the first part of it already being implemented? You're asking the wrong person for that one, man. You can go ask the IG that, but what you're asking is why alpha? Why alpha? It's not a done game, and the CIG seems to be treating. They do seem to want their cake and eat it too. They want to say that it's a complete game, but then also treat it like an alpha in the sense that they'll add things in before it's really needed. I don't know, Solathern. Soon, I hope. Possibly. I don't know if there'll be a breaching pod. There is a Vandal breaching pod, but I think it's only going to be used for like Squadron 42. All the moons have atmosphere. They just aren't really thick. I think Aberdeen has really thick atmosphere, but that's about it. He's Chris Roberts, yeah. I mean, I'll give you the answer they'd give me if I asked them about that. And the answer is that if it's done, they need to put it in the game. And the reason why they need to put it in the game is because it needs to be tested. Because the alpha is the live game is a alpha environment, and they want to know more information. And if it's done, they put it in there. Now, I know the reason why they put it in there is because they need to show some progress. A lot of the stuff that they're doing or they're working on is locked behind back-end progress. So they can't do a lot of stuff around missions because anything
I'm just
they do
an
around
old-fashioned cowboy.
Anything they do around a mission would probably change. And the reason why it would change is because of the dynamic mission system causing it to change. So anything they do there is kind of wasted in the short term. Or in the long term. Not in the short term. And a lot of the stuff they want to do, like increasing player sizes and stuff like that, player sizes requires other technology to be developed. So if it's something that doesn't require the tech that's being developed, they'll try to do it if it doesn't affect it long term. So, for instance, body dragging. Not really something that's going to be affected by server meshing and that kind of stuff too much. So why not working on it?
2 words. Distress bacon.
That's fun and all this stuff. So they need to show progress, and it's hard to show progress when a lot of progress that is visible, that players can find through, or players will see in updates, can't be done until back-end stuff, which is not visible, is done.
I'm Fly. I'm Pilot.
When I try to launch the game, but it now keeps saying if this P. It might be liquid oxygen. I don't know. I saw the mic say, what do you think they can do to keep the hype up this year? Not tell us things that they're working on and reveal it at the last minute at CitizenCon, because they'll do something big and spectacular. There's really no point in keeping the hype up for them for right now. They didn't have to because they've made ass tons of money. Like, the real reason they need hype is for people to play. The reason why they need people to play is to test. They also need people to buy the game so that they can play the game, so that they can get money for the game, so they continue to develop. With the Fleet Week sale that they did, holy shit, did they blow out a lot of their expectations. And that was already went and they were having funding goals surpassed monthly. Every month leading up to July, at the very least, has been the best month of that of funding for that year ever, or for that month ever. So like June was the best June ever, May was the best May ever, April was the best April ever, all the way back to November. So the answer is more, the question is more why should they have to keep the hype up? They'll likely save it for some big reveal at the end of the year like they always do, or they could just not, they just could be waiting until a lot of technology in the back end is done. We'll see. Well, that's the reason. Like CIG, like, I don't assume malice with CIG just because they don't seem to be, hey, money. They seem to be more, we need to keep the lights on. How do we make sure that we can keep the lights on? Sales is how they keep the lights on. But they've been making money hand over fist. How many like concept ship sales have we had that weren't direct flyable concept ships? I think one? Yeah, one, maybe two this entire year. Whereas last year it was like 8, and the year before that it was like 1 a month. And concept ships is how they used to make tons and tons of money. Most of the money coming in is from newer backers. It seems like either new packages being purchased or newer backers buying new ships and stuff like that. So the best thing they can do is now take that money and then invest it in, continue to work on the back end to try to keep everything going up. They don't really have to worry about selling a ship that won't be done for 7 years. This problem says, please verify your installation files. You know how to verify there, Alpha? If you go into the little settings cog or whatever on the option on the top right, I think, you'll see a verify files. You click that and verify it. If that still doesn't work, there's a help desk on Spectrum, a player help desk on Spectrum. They can walk you through some of those issues. I don't think they did, honestly, because they have made lots and lots of money. I don't think they lost a lot of consumers. I don't think they lost a lot of customers. I think they didn't get enough potential customers. But the idea that a free week or free weekend is not going to be buggy at all is ridiculous. Every free weekend for every game, even games that are really well established and have a long-term history, will be buggy and have problems for released games because they usually are, their servers are smashed. One more question. Where's my BB-12? Exactly. I think CIG has talked about how they're wanting to do more variations and attachment systems for the armors and stuff like that. That's going to be interesting. It would not be would it not be logical for them to design buildings and outposts like they do ships with modulars without engines? That's kind of what I assume they're going to do, Foible, but I don't think they planned on that ahead of time. They were just trying to get modules out for outposts, so that they could have something on planets for 3.0. There does need to be jetpacks. I think the BB-12 is a good example. I think you need something that will cause players to make a decision, like lose a weapon slot and gain a jetpack or something like that. Jetpacks for atmosphere and planets? Yeah, because, I mean, you basically, all you need is something that would allow you to slow your descent. Something that would break your fall, a suicide burn. Something that would let you fall all the way through the atmosphere, and then right before you hit the ground, release out a burn to slow your descent so you don't pass out, but has only enough fuel to keep you from dying and going kasplat on a planet. On a high-G planet. So then you have very variable options, so it'll slow you down further, give you more stuff. Retro thrusters. Drop pods make sense, but not really when you're talking about ejecting from a seat in like a Hornet. You eject from a Hornet, you just go kersplat on a planet. Ejection doesn't make a lot of sense. So there needs to be some way that a pilot who is ejecting from a Hornet knows that they're going to survive, or at least has a chance of surviving when they hit the ground. It would be fun if impractical. Do I think that concept ships are more important than alpha game/alpha performance? To make? Not really. But I don't think CIG thinks that either. And I actually don't think performance is all that important. I think performance is important only in that they have to do quarterly releases, so that they can make sure people are playing it. But I think what's most important with an alpha is the content, is the content they're making. And again, a lot of the stuff that they're making is stuck behind back-end stuff that's still being worked. Servers are garbage because they still need to work on server meshing, iCache, lots of other performance improvements, that kind of thing. That's a lot of work there, Solo Third. That's a lot of work. Oh, we talked about that earlier. That's probably the same.
Our struggle as artists isn't about appeasing the crowd.
I like the giant airball thing, but it would also be a physics nightmare.
Inside of ourselves. We create things as a reflection of this.
Exactly.
To study our perception of self.
It would be a lot of work because you'd have to completely create. You'd have to section off the areas that are the ship, that are the cockpit, and make them steerable with their own fuel. It's the same reason why making a different modules for a ship is expensive and time consuming. It makes more sense to give somebody the option to have an attachment to an armor, or like a chest piece that is just a jetpack that is essentially designed as a survival pack that could also be doubling as a means for people to infiltrate into a location without landing a ship. Both of those are cool. Those normally would be a parachute, but because not every planet has an atmosphere, a jetpack makes a lot more sense. I don't see what you said about the MPVU. What were you referring to with the MPUV personnel? Soccer balls of doom. Exactly. No, because I don't want to get copyright strike. That's why. How far back is it? Oh, have you noticed that the big escape pods and the United jump is the same shape as the Argo personnel transport container? Maybe goes for more ships pods. Maybe. I will watch it, but I'm not going to watch it on stream. I'll mute myself real quickly. I'm muted. I forgot about that. I'm not seeing anything about like about the I'm not seeing anything about I'm not seeing anything about like a Taylor Swift video on the subreddit. I'm in the top posts. I see external gun glad rack in the latest PDTU. I see remember that time when landing was deadly. Illumination. My uncle will die. Control box. PTU. Lighting Grimhex. New flight model. Mustang Beta. I'm complaining about unsubscribing. I'm not seeing anything like that. Yeah, someone asked me just a Taylor Swift Chris Roberts thing. I was like, what? It's like, it's only a couple seconds, but I'm not seeing it. I'm not muted now, but. So graphics content over structure performance for you? Not really. I mean, the problem about performance is that performance you can only implement for so long. Like, if you take some time and make sure that the game is performing very well, go through and clean out code and do your best to improve performance, to fix specific issues with the game, especially with issues with the game that are going to be replaced, it's wasted effort. Because if it gets replaced, then you just spent a lot of time fixing something that's going to be replaced anyways. Which is one of the reasons why we see return of bugs that used to exist now exist again, because a lot of times that'll be fixed or it'll go away from an update and then it'll come back anyways. So tracing down that bug may be pointless because that bug may be fixed in another update. So performance like here's an example. Vulkan API is something that they've been working on. It's something that they're likely, as from the looks of things, from the sounds of things, they seem confident that it'll be implemented all, if not some, by the end of the year. Vulkan API should improve performance, but it's not a bug fixing, it's not a performance boosting. It's built mostly so that you can have longer rendering distances. So there's an actual impact on the gameplay for it. But it will also improve performance for other players with lower end machines. That's content. Now, should all of those things that Vulkan fix, should you put time and effort into fixing that now while you're still working on Vulkan? No, that's wasted time. Those people should be working on Vulkan, which they are. As a result, you're going to have some performance issues as you go along, simply because you don't want to fix something that you're going to fix down the line. The issue comes to when something is supposed to happen in 6 months and then ends up taking 3 years to make. What do? You're starting to see performance degradation over time. So the answer is focusing on performance and performance alone is in some cases futile, in other cases entirely wasteful compared to focusing on other aspects of the game or by fixing some other smaller problems everywhere else. Yes, and they actually, it seems like docking has been delayed until next year, but it also seems like they're working their way up there. You know, they showed off some from early versions of docking with the Merlin, and I'm assuming that means that they're probably 6 months away from putting it into the game, which is early next year. Fingers crossed for an Apoa hover unicycle. I know, I love you. I love that idea. Hey, UK dude.
No pinch, no pinch.
But yeah, anti-hero. The idea that they're making the game, but they're making the game. The foundation of the game is being built with a lot of the back end stuff, which is not done yet. So graphics, content, and structure of you. If you build a house of broken foundation, you shouldn't be able to keep building on that foundation rather than fix it to be stable. What do you mean by that? You're basically that's not really a question. You're just saying that the foundation of Star Citizen's broken and you can't build, and so it's what they're doing is putting lipstick on a pig. What do you want them to do? You want them to go back and completely screw all the things they've done and do a new engine or something like that? I mean, like what you seem to be saying is that the game needs to be stable in order to be played, which is true. But you also seem to say that the reason why it's unstable is because at its core it's broken. But what does that mean? Rather than what I'm saying is that a lot of the stuff that needs to be fixed and added in are taking time. And the teams that are working on the iCache and the server meshing and those kind of things are not the same teams that are working on the content. And a lot of that content can't be made until CIG has finished that other works, the backend works. And a lot of times improving the content that's there now doesn't make a lot of sense if it's fundamentally going to be changed because of iCache and server meshing and any other kind of content that they're making that's going to go into the back end. So at some point, they're going to have to stop working on the back end and then just finish with what they have. I don't know when that's going to be. It might be at the when server meshing is integrated. I don't know. That's when you start improving upon stability. That's what beta is for. Beta is finding bugs and improving the performance. You said performance. Structure over structure/performance. And you're saying structure. What do you mean by structure? Because you're implying that the structure is broken. But what does that mean? That's the problem. It's like say what you mean. Don't dance around the argument. Say what you mean. Do you think Star Citizen's broken fundamentally? How so? In what way? Be specific. That way I can give you a specific answer. The engine is fine. The engine is fine and they're updating it over time, but yeah. The two-tone blonde. It's not blonde, it's white. It's gray. It's not my look. It's just the way it exists right now. What is Trees talking about? Oh, that you don't blow up escape pods? Yeah. I was so keen on persistent physicalized stuff that will change the game massively. Salvage, base building, and most interesting for me in particular, combat disabling a ship and boarding it becomes the focus. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. That's very much what I'm hoping for as well. What a lot of people are waiting for, but I don't know when that's being focused on. It was mentioned in Squadron 42 at some point, but we haven't seen any indication of it being worked on, that damage state being worked on yet. So interesting to see that. I'm hoping that they put it in the end of the year, but It's not in the, they haven't been talking about it, and it's not in the roadmap. So I'm assuming it's still not in there yet. Yeah, I had fun. If CIG just closed shop and walked away and never and the server shut down tomorrow, yeah, that'd be fine. I think we're waiting for Antihero's response. He's probably writing out his detailed explanation, so I'd give him some time there. I think iCache needs to be in there, but I think there may be some other issues like the server to client networking refactor, so they can bring down desync, because that would suck if you desynced yourself into a into like a bullet is desynced where it should have hit the side, it hits straight through your your engine, even though it shot nowhere near your engine. To get into a ship while UVA, we don't know solo learn. I'd assume so. I'd hope that CIG uses what they currently have in terms of the hacking chip, and there's just include panels with the new UI systems to implement some sort of hacking gameplay. Even something remote, something very simple. Yeah, the fact that Star Citizen is broken. Why have they not fixed the bugs from years ago? If they're adding new content on code that will be irrelevant with code without fixing the code first. So, okay, the fact that Star Citizen is broken, okay, not entirely, but there are broken aspects. Why have they not fixed bugs from years ago, yet they're adding new content on code that will be irrelevant with code without fixing the code first? What you're saying is that, if I'm following this right, you're saying that Star Citizen is building stuff on top of something that is already broken that they're going to have to go back and fix later. Why are they doing that? Could you use an example specifically? Because I don't know if CIG is doing that. You seem to be saying that they're building something on top of something that's going to be replaced or will have to be fixed. The atmospheric bartenders. I love the atmospheric bartenders. Exactly. He's talking about tech debt. Well, that's the thing is that they're not going to go back and they're not building on top of things that are going to be replaced. What they're doing is, where they can, improve what they can and maintain things, but mostly wait until the fundamental stuff changes. In an ideal environment, they wouldn't have done that. In an ideal environment, not being pushed out to a public on a regular basis, they'd probably focus more on waiting, either like not building half the stuff they built, wait for the technology to be built that they are building, and then go all in at that point. Dancing Turtle Girl CIG. Yeah, you need to, CIG definitely needs to make life have value to make the game better. So 30Ks is not a bug. 30Ks is simply an error code, which says that the server disconnected from the server. So 30Ks will exist even after forever. You will always have 30Ks. The reason why people are angry about 30Ks more have to do with the fact that when you 30K, all progress that was made that wasn't saved in some way, so like selling your cargo, is reset. So it's essentially like dying. However, one of those fixes to 30Ks is iCache, because, at least in theory, iCache is supposed to track where everyone is at any point on a map. So if you crash out because a server went down, when you log back in, even if you 30K, you go back to where you were. That's at least the theory that would be there. So 30Ks will never go away. You're never going to fix 30Ks. 30Ks is going to be around forever. It's just a disconnect from the server. Later, Sharp. Thanks for hanging out, man. The back-end structure, which is fundamentally being worked on. The problem is that what you're asking them to do is not build something in the game for players to play while they're working on iCache and server meshing, or dynamic server, the dynamic mission systems and stuff like that. But they can't do that. And there's a lot that they can learn by building systems right now that will then be replaced by newer systems in the future. In some cases, they can build systems right now that then they have to modify later. If in a perfect world they didn't have to release something to the public, they wouldn't do that. But in the case of, say, mission building, it gives the mission builders practice to build missions that they will then have to throw away. In some cases, it's wasted effort. In other cases, it's training. And it gives players content that they can then get feedback from and improve upon later. It's the same kind of idea that people said that, 2.0 was completely wasted because they had to throw away almost all the assets to build for 3.0. But they learned a lot about building 2.0 that helped go into 3.0 and beyond. Everything is a learning process because this is a brand new team of brand new developers in terms of like as a group. Some of them have never worked in gaming before. Now they're working and now they're trying to figure out how do they improve it? How do they improve this game? And since every game is unique in terms of its challenges, they're kind of going through the processes of how to make the game fun. So in many cases, they're trying to balance the tech debt in the sense of how much do we put a lipstick on a pig versus how much do we just let it crumble until we get new content. All right, Alpha, you're gonna want to talk to the go onto Spectrum, Alpha, and go to the volunteer help desk. Go to that one on Spectrum. It's a live chat and walk through with them. They'll help you out. No, iCache will probably, and server meshing might as well. They're working on iCache over meshing right now, but iCache will probably do a lot of work in terms of a lot of the fix some of the issues that are currently happening. No problem, man. I mean, like the point, Antihero, is, and CIG has talked about this. There's a lot of research that I've done casually that helped me with this just because it's partially my job. There's a lot of information that CIG talks about, and how they limit tech debt is specifically by not updating something. If something that is going to be replaced, they have these meetings where they figure out like, okay, what do we need to do? How are we going to do this? And they plan out where they're going to go for an entire year or for the next sprints and so on and so forth. And when they figure out what they're going to do long term, they tend to decide, okay, we're not going to update this here. We're going to focus on that. And as a result, they are avoiding tech debt by just not updating broken and old materials and just replacing them with new materials, or not even building upon them. That doesn't always happen. And it definitely happened with the ships, because a lot of the ships are very old and now they have to update all of them to new tech, which they need to get done. But they also have they have a large team of people who work on ships who've built these ships from the ground up and have a lot of experience with them. So for them, going back and fixing something or changing something isn't as much of an issue as, say, completely redesigning flight models. Like I said earlier, when we say flight model, when we talk about how the flight model is broken or the flight model changes, it doesn't. The flight model is the same. The physics and the flight model still there. It's the flight performance of ships that change. What they're doing is changing things like thruster output and like how the ships handle. The actual flight model itself remains the same. It's just changing the performance of the ships. 5 per studio. They have a lot of people in ship teams. I think there's like 2 or 3 in Austin. I think there's 2 or 3 in LA. There's a ship team in Manchester, and I believe there's a ship team in Frankfurt. There's a lot of people there. No problem, man. Go to that help desk, Alpha Diallo. That help desk will help. It's staffed almost all the time with volunteer players who are used to seeing these issues, and they'll walk you through it. Ooh, Zilzo, can you? I'll give you permissions. Hold on. Give me. Can you post it? Hold on. Damn it. I'll pull it up. I don't know why it does. It didn't give me time to permit. All right. You know what? I'm gonna use the restroom. I'll be back. We'll talk about this, and this will probably be the end of the day. All right, let's talk about it. So, Xylo, we realize that our old roadmap doesn't represent our development progress. Very well. We started exploring other options to build something more informational that will fit in how we develop games. The original message about this one was March Robert Malthus, followed with hints that Squadron 42 focus calling all devs, and March 13th. When we mentioned we were happy with Squadron 42 development and committed to a few things, I'd bring up again. We talked about injecting more Squadron 42 content into our regular scheduled releases, which is why you may have noticed things like Squadron 42 themed episode of Calling All Devs or Inside Star Citizen updates on Vandal ships, gas tech, deeper look at a CDO comm array, and other related content. This is all alongside Squadron 42 reports March, April, May, June. One of the important elements of messaging in Squadron 42 updates has also been to raise awareness that work completed for Star Citizen is also done for Squadron 42. The only content that's exclusively Squadron 42 are people, places, and pilot. We don't want to spoil those, or in plot. We don't want to spoil those. With all Squadron 42 updates, our goal has been to find balance sharing Squadron 42 content while minimally impacting development of the team, so they can focus on what matters most, finishing the game. The recent Squadron 42 video update, which is a brand new show we were debuting called The Briefing Room, was a lower effort video that we embarked on with the goal of sharing more information with you, but in a scrappy and fast manner, so as to minimize the disruption of the dev team and yet still give you new information. We plan this to be a semi-regular show, with its cadence depending on how well the content was received or how disruptive or not. The first episode would be to our dev team. The first episode is meant to focus specifically on updates to our conversion, interrupt tech, and level design in Squadron 42. What we discovered after the whole piece was finished and getting ready to publish is that our approach resulted in an underwhelming show. Not only did the episode have major audio issues due to VHF recording, but it lacked visuals to support talking, and we truly prefer the show rather than tell. Ultimately, we decided that it wasn't good enough to show for being a scrappy video that was meant to be a marketing sizzler, that was not meant to be a marketing sizzle trailer. However, before that stop ship message could perpetrate our entire marketing org, we had moved forward with a public publish date. Originally, we thought we could simply splice some fresh B-roll, but in the next few days reviewing the show, They reshoot the entire episode for visual quality standards. As mentioned, the briefing room was never meant to be such a disruption to the team that would prioritize footage of for the show over the internal milestones development. Therefore, our Squadron 42 art team could only work on capturing new footage after normal work hours. Add to the mix the personnel were actually out sick for a week, and you can see how our schedule kept getting pushed back further and further. We've currently communicated with clearly communicated the delays with the reasons for it, and have Brian Chambers relay music. Initially, our CMs repeatedly message. Okay. The Squad 42 is still coming, probably in the next few weeks, along with an assortment of other updates, including an overhaul to our public roadmap. The new roadmap is something we hinted at in March, but because it was still very much in development. We can't share as much about it as I would like. Believe me when I say I'm personally very eager to release it to you. We took the time to explore options of how we could better represent our progress, and I believe that we're getting close to landing in a pretty good spot. Our goal with this new roadmap is to give you better visibility into what teams are working on, share the progress of more teams, and go so far as to indicate the size of the projects for our tech, features, and content teams. This new roadmap will drastically change how you follow development progress for both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. The new roadmap will focus on breaking out teams and features so you can interactively see what's being worked on across all teams, as opposed to what the features will make X-release. While it's not quite ready, it's currently top priority on the web team's current projects. In the immediate future, we plan on delivering the following communications. Give an explanation for the goals of our new roadmap and what to expect from it. Show a rough mock-up of the proposed roadmap. Share a work-in-progress version of the roadmap, or at least one of our core teams. And then finally transition to this new roadmap. We'll approach them in order above, and then likely need a few weeks between steps. So I don't want to create the impression that this is happening overnight, but we should think of announcing step 1 pretty soon. In my meeting on Thursday about this, as good as I think it will be. Okay. So, I got it though. So how's that development roadmap coming then? Oh, God. No, there's no animals in 310. I don't know who told you that. The idea behind my question is that if cargo haulers, for instance, are safer in Stanton, what would make them want to go to Pyro unless the mats there are worth significantly more? Antihero, quick explanation. My best guess. Pyro is poor as fuck. It's not exactly a huge, it's a slum. It's the equivalent, the difference between Stanton and Pyro is that Stanton is first world and Pyro is third world. It only has Ruin Station, and there's a lot of stuff that's broken. So the common things that are cheap as dirt, food, oxygen, water, in places like Stanton may be worth their weight in gold in Pyro. Thus, haulers going into Pyro because they will have the maximum amount of profit. The other thing that's reality is that the main export of Ruin Station is drugs. Lots and lots of illegal drugs. So if a hauler is taking out food, water, medical supplies, that kind of thing, to Ruin Station, they can come back with cheap drugs that they can then sell in Stanton if they want to. It is a smuggling / trader's job to go to Pyro. The reason why pirates they've changed that, Chief Gully. They've changed that significantly so that Pyro isn't mined out. It's just all of the easily accessible material has been mined out by that would be accessible by corporate mining companies that would make it viable for them to have a corporate interest there. Pyro is going to have a lot of high valuable minerals. In fact, the planet that was supposed to be mined out is going to be completely changed to being a planet that wasn't mined out. So You know, like roadmaps. Oh, which news was it? Was that what the Inside Gaming thing was about? Was that CIG isn't talking about its roadmap updates? Okay, that makes sense. I'm not so pissed off at them at that then. That makes sense. As long as they did their research for it. As long as it wasn't like, because they've been way wrong in the past when talking about that. Why now? It's after E3. Xbox has made its announcement. Sony has made its announcement, or the PlayStation's been making its announcement. There's really no more gaming conventions going to go on for the rest of the year. There's really no announcements planned. There's going to be releases of like the PlayStation, the PS5, and the Xbox X. I think sometime this year. I don't know. So, yay! Like, there's nothing else to do. This is the time for that to happen. They half-assed research on it. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So they basically did the same thing they'd done in the past. Did you do the party hard there, Conka? It's not on right now. It's not on this. Yeah, basically, modern day journalism. Well, at least if this is what if that slapdash reporting got CIG to finally respond to it, thank God. I've been memeing the hell out of it for weeks now. And Tyler, if you're watching, I'm not sorry. You guys stuck your foot in your mouth and chewed, and did a terrible job of explaining what the update was. You did a better job at explaining what the update was supposed to be than anybody else did. You didn't explain that it was just a dude reading the updates, which people would have still liked it. It's Space Viking, Space Jesus talking about the updates they've done. That's fine. Yeah, I'll post it in here. Did I not see? Is it? Yeah, it stopped covering the freaking. It stopped freaking covering the restream. All right, let me look through the stream. If we ever get our Cowboy Bebop, what company would you want it to be, and what made by, and what color? Crusader Industries, and it should be whatever color you want, because we've got patch, that kind of stuff. If I got a Cowboy Bebop, I would like it to be made by Crusader Industries, and I'd love it to be red, crimson red. One of the podcasts they did about animals, that was before 3.10 release. Yeah, they did do a podcast about it, or they did do a broadcast about it. They did do a video about it, but that was more that they were developing it, not that it was in 3.10. Because the first one that they seem to be focusing on more is the Pyro Crab, and the Pyro Crab likely won't be put into the game until at least Pyro's in. So by the end of the year, if not next year, likely more next year. How are we expected to travel between systems? Is there going to be an achievable with large carrier ships? Wanting to move system to system, would I have to dock to a bigger ship in QT? No, it's not QT. It's jump points. So there are three major ways you can travel in Star Citizen. It's the old-fashioned foot or like vehicle or ship flying. Then there's quantum travel, and then there is jump points. Jump points are tunnels, wormholes that connect all of the different the different systems in the game. So the only way to travel between a system to system is go through a jump point. Now, some jump points are developed and they have a gate which is built around it to facilitate easier travel. But not everyone does. Some of them are just natural, as you have to find the point for it and then open it up and fly through with a jump drive. So you need to have a jump drive as well as a quantum drive. Not all ships have quantum drives and jump drives, but most ships can equip a jump drive and a quantum drive. No sky whale? Yes. I don't know about an Argo. For Fortnite, how are we going to be expected to travel between systems? Okay. Oh, so you're moist and meaty on Twitch. I get it. Oh no, moist and meaty is Fortnite. Okay. Can space whales use jump points? No, because space whales are stuck on Crusaders, as far as I know. If a person shot like some alien animal, would we be able to cook it up and sell it at a restaurant? Possibly. I mean, the idea behind space animals and stuff like that is that they will be used for crafting systems or for sale, for sure. The lost system? Yeah, there's a lost system. Thank you for that, Captain Adam. I agree with that. Not necessarily me, but more Board and plenty of other content creators. I think they're wasting potential with a lot of content creators in Star Citizen right now who could be adding to the discussion. And by that I mean sit down with Board Gamer on his channel with an exclusive interview with Chris Roberts or something like that. Or I'm not saying this is going to happen in Captain's Table, but having devs come onto the Captain's Table and talking about something that they specifically have been working on recently. Diversifying it then rather than just being put onto Star Citizen's YouTube channel. It helps the content creators out, but it also takes the narrative away from CIG. So it adds a little bit more trust because I'm not going to stick to the script that Disco Lando is. I'm going to ask questions which the community wants me to ask. Same with Board Gamer and all the other ones. We're going to ask questions based off what the community wants. And if they can answer them properly, it makes the community feel better. That's just me thinking in terms of marketing. You've got a free marketing team in content creation teams. Throw them a bone. It gives them some more revenue or more attention. But it also will back up your own credibility as well as allow for more people to discuss things. But that also depends because they're not the content creation teams or the developers are not there for content creation to interview. You know, they've got work to do that's not involving promotions. It's easier to do that with a game that's about to be released, but yeah, hand in hand. All right, there. We're probably going to be wrapping it up here shortly. I'd like to see you with CR and interview on a personal level. I mean, one of the things I've always wanted to do is sit down with two CIG employees and not talk about Star Citizen at all. Sit down with, say, Jay Lee and John Crew and sit there and say, like, talk about where did Jay Lee learn to do art? What other projects has he done? What are some of his influences in art? Why does he do art? What is his philosophy around art itself? What kind of concept? Those sorts of things. Ask John Crew, like, what other projects has he worked on? What does he get his influences from? What makes him want to do video game development? That kind of stuff. Because I think those conversations are more insightful when it comes to Star Citizen than just where are we on X? Because I know the answer for that is it's being worked on, which I'm sure somebody is in their spare time working on it. Question: as a person who wraps himself up in lore, do you get annoyed at the changes in the lore timelines? Case in point, lore on the Valkyrie. I haven't looked at the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie was recently released, right? Not really. It's a work in progress. There's a lot of stuff that's going to change around lore as they come through. It's erratas are going to happen because stuff that they thought about 6 years ago just doesn't make any sense anymore. It means that my job is safe as a lore guy who makes videos on YouTube. I always get to make an update video on how that's changed. But more, you're going to have to tell me more, like, how has the Valkyrie changed? Yes, we talked about that, Kat, just now. About the update. So they're going to do a new roadmap. It seems like they're taking the idea that we floated on the captain's table a couple months ago with Masocast, and I think it was Masocast. No, it was Gandora Olap and SimCitizen, because they're both project managers. So we both floated the idea of doing a short, medium, and long-term roadmap. So, like, what's happening in the short term, what's planning in the medium term, what's on the long. No dates, but just what we're working on. Because when you put dates on, people think it's a promise, and then people lose their fucking minds because salvage didn't make it. You put salvage in long term, no one knows what that means. So some people will say, well, long term is next year or 2 years from now. But other people will say, well, maybe it's a year, maybe it's a decade from now. We don't know. But when it moves from long term to medium term on the roadmap, then people will lose their fucking minds because they're like, it's getting closer, And that's easier because you don't have to give people estimates and that kind of stuff. And short term, we would usually mean the next patch or shortly. No salvage. I know since the release of Valkyrie had headlights, still don't. When do you think we will see aliens? I like the alien races they have. I'd love to see, obviously we're going to get animal aliens first, but I'd love to see the Tavaran come in first. To Tavaran, then the Banu. Because the Tavaran are cool. And they already fit in the lore, because they already exist. I wouldn't add any more aliens. I think there's enough alien sentient species in Star Citizen. There's just enough. Enough to add diversity and to make the universe not just humans, but and not just like one alien and one human or a couple aliens and humans, but not so much that you're just drowning in new aliens every Star Wars or Star Trek style, where like every series introduces like 17 new species that are now suddenly everywhere and stuff like that. Keep it simple. It's fine to keep it simple. You think we'll see more J Capital ships that work alongside the Kraken and maybe serve more direct combat role? Probably not. It doesn't seem to be Drake's real MO. Drake seems to be focusing more on fighters and medium large attack craft. I think the Kraken is probably going to be the largest one, with it as kind of a center of a Drake fleet. These jump points with the Carrick, I think we'll see them soon. Sooner than later. I mean, when Pyro comes in, and Pyro seems to be clipping along in terms of development. I don't know if it'll come in at the end of the year, because there's been some leaks about it coming at the end of the year. I would assume probably not. Though, knowing CIG, that's very much a flag-waving, feet-stomping kind of achievement that they'd probably want to do. Lore of the Valkyries is a ship about 150 years old, but then changed it to a ship about 20 years old. To others, this may seem inconsequential. However, to me, and maybe you, it makes me start to look at other inconsistencies. It's still in alpha. Like, there's still a lot of inconsistencies that exist. Like, for instance, a big one is there's a quote from a CEO of Crusader Industries about living in Crusader. The problem is that the lore was updated, so there's only been 2 CEOs of Crusader Industries. The current one, Kelly Kaplan, and I don't remember the other guy's name, but it wasn't the one that was quoted. So definitely never existed, but it was an interesting quote that you can just then assume with Kelly Kaplan. Same thing with Stanton. A lot of people pissed and moaned that Stanton was too young of a system for it to have been developed so quickly, so they changed it around. When you have 4 writing teams working on stories and elements of the game independently or together over years, some things aren't going to mesh together, so they're going to have to go back and change some ideas around. I'd have to look up the Valkyries lore to see if they changed it to be about 20 years old. I never thought it was 150 years old, and if it was 150 years old, it would be older than Anvil. Because Anvil was only founded in 2772, I want to say, or something like that. So 150 years old would be like the founding of Anvil, and it doesn't really fit with the marketing materials that they put in there, with it being the new Anvil Valkyrie, you know. It's just, it's a matter of, it's an alpha. Like, the lore is an alpha as much as the game is an alpha. So, you know, when you find these things, they'll change them around. The reality is we really don't have, like, the lore is on paper. It's not really in game yet. And a lot of that paper lore is going to have to get updated as they develop the game further. They've done a really good job of keeping it loose enough so that they don't have to do it, but in case by case basis, they're going to have to do it. Like, for instance, Pyro has Pyro 2 is supposed to be a hollowed out husk of a planet. And they were just like, that's stupid. We don't want to do that anymore. So a lot of the systems lore, in terms of like the defining aspects of those lore, may change. I don't think, like, for instance, Yar will change from being a desert planet to like a jungle planet. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Or Sai or any of the major landing zones. But I do think that some of the more, like, the dust balls, the places that nobody cares about, will change. They may remove or add planets or moons to planets, to systems, just because they want to add more flavor to them, that kind of thing. As much as it might break immersion, at the end of the day, it's an alpha. The lore is an alpha. Hey, it's the mayor of Grimhax. How you doing, buddy? That's a great article, by the way. Let me post that in the chat so you guys can see it. Just posted on Spectrum for you guys. By the oh yeah, that's I mean, obviously it's inspired by Starship Troopers. I'd love to see that. So that's an interview. So there's this great crew calling themselves Imperial Geographic that do a lot of great work in terms of documenting Star Citizen, documenting players, events. They had a great documentary on the Daymar Rally, which they were done with in-game interviews and stuff like that. It's not done in lore like, say, the Jumptown documentary I did, but it's done with the players in the game and them talking about it, which is pretty cool. A start brief on all the races, yeah. That probably would make sense. At some point, do you think we might have battle with bugs like in Starship Troopers? For sure. I'm sure there's going to be a planet full of bugs. You know, I think we'll have alien-esque, like xenomorph-esque races or something similar to that, or at least in terms of threat that exists in the universe. CIG is going to pull as much as they can if they can get away with it. I think if you could speak not just to speak, if you can read Xi'an or Banu, I think you will have some advantage, because when you go onto some planets, they may not have English translations of the signs, so you don't know where you're going. There might be like a translation app on the Mobi that you can pull up and be like, what does that sign say? But for players who know the language, will be able to look at it and go, that's the bathroom over that way, I'm going over there, kind of thing. All right, this is a lot later than I was planning on doing it. But thank you guys so much. Where the hell is The Expanse? Is coming later this year. Season 5 is coming later this year. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us here tonight at the Astropub. If you guys did enjoy this, please hit that follow button or subscribe to us if you guys are watching this on YouTube. Make sure you leave your comments in the YouTube section if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact. We do this live every Tuesday, usually at 7 p.m. Eastern, which is 4 p.m. Pacific. It's like about midnight for those of you guys in British summertime. Join us live to answer these questions and talk about it with us. Thank you to all the patrons who have supported this. I haven't been posting the patron question because I'm stupid, so I'll be asking next week. We'll have the patron question. We are going to be releasing a video on the Carrick, the lore video on the Carrick, based off of the lore information. Based off of my current editing, it is about 12 minutes long. And then next week we'll have the Idris, one on the Idris. So we'll probably do a little bit more of the individual ship histories more than doing the broad scopes, just because they're easier for me to do right now. There's a lot of missing B-roll for everything else, so I've been stretching myself. Like I'll probably turn my my current election document back into a report, which is no visuals, just audio basically, but. Hi, Xylo. I saw we were talking about your update recently. I was saying that you described what the actual Squadron 42 update was better than we actually had before. I had no idea that it was just a kind of a verbal update with not a lot of B-roll and stuff like that. So that helps. Communication's a little bit better. But yeah, Xylo is on. They can't see you on. They can see you on Twitch. They can see you because they're watching that screen right there. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Love your faces. We'll be back tomorrow. I think probably playing some Star Citizen. Wednesdays are usually for other games that we play on live on Twitch. But Thursdays we do our Zero to Hero. Fridays we do our bartending streams live. So kind of check that out. Love you guys. Is there any lore info on the Super Carrier Retribution? Not quite yet, but we'll talk about that. Thank you guys. Love your faces. Have a great night.